Time being now 7:01, I will call council meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Schrader.
Mrs. Schatzinger.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Gallops.
Here.
Mrs. Kane.
Here.
Mr. Gotsky.
Here.
Mr. Wirch. Mr. Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading from Psalm 24. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? And who shall stand in his holy place? Those who have clean hands and pure hearts, who do not lift up their souls to what is false, and do not swear deceitfully. They will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from the God of their salvation. Eternal Father, you are above all powers, above all kingdoms, above all nature and all created things. Yet you care for the least and the lost. Even a sparrow will not fall on the ground without your notice. We pray for the city of Ripon and the city council. Keep us safe under your protective wings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Moved by Howard, seconded by Page. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Any public comment tonight? No public comment. All right, moving into first of two proclamations. All right, first one is the City of Ripon Proclamation Fair Housing Month. Whereas August is traditionally designated as Fair Housing Month, and whereas it is important to reaffirm the commitment of the City of Ripon regarding citizens' right to buy, sell, rent, or otherwise secure housing in the City of Ripon without regard to sex, race, religion, marital status, age, national origin, income, or financial status, in conformance with Title 8 of the Civil Rights Action of 1968, also known as the Federal Housing Law and State Open Housing Law. Now therefore, I, Theodore Grant, Mayor of the City of Ripon, on behalf of the City of Ripon and its residents, do hereby proclaim August 2021 as Fair Housing Month and encourage all housing providers to support and affirm their commitment to the fair housing. Would there be a motion to adopt this proclamation?
I move to adopt this proclamation as stated.
Is there a second? Moved by Jolene, seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That one is approved. Okay, the second proclamation is for International Overdose Awareness Day. Whereas drug abuse and addiction impact quality of life across Wisconsin, negatively affecting the health, relationships, and livelihoods of residents throughout our state and community, and potentially leading to severe injury or death from an overdose. And whereas many, though not all, drug overdoses in the United States and Wisconsin are related to the use of opioids such as heroin, fentanyl, and prescription oxycodone. And whereas, according to the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, the number of opioid-related deaths in 2020 totaled 1,226, including 25 in Fond du Lac County. And whereas the City of Ripon recognizes the stigma and discrimination associated with substance abuse disorders and addiction must be addressed so that no one ever feels shame for struggling or having overdosed or for asking for help. And whereas spreading awareness about how to recognize an opioid overdose and what to do in the event of an overdose is the goal of DHS's hashtag Hope Act Live WI campaign, which also provides information on the range of support, services, and resources that exist in our community. And whereas the last day of August is recognized worldwide as a day to remember those we have lost to a drug overdose, to acknowledge the grief of their families, friends, and communities, and to act to reduce the stigma of drug-related deaths. And whereas everyone can save a life by educating themselves on the signs of an overdose, learning how to administer the emergency narcotic overdose reversal drug naloxone, and calling 911. Now, therefore, I, Theodore Grant, Mayor of the City of Ripon, do hereby proclaim August 31st, 2021 as International Overdose Awareness Day throughout the City of Ripon and commend this observance to all our residents.
Motion to accept.
I'll second that.
Been moved by John Split and seconded by Paige. John?
Thank you. I'd just like to add that Colleen and I will be placing a purple chair with a sign stating August 31st as International Overdose Awareness Day in front of City Hall. I would like to thank Chief Wallner, Mike Ehrenberg, Mayor Grant, and Adam Sontag for the proclamation and permission to do this. This has a special meaning to our family and hopefully brings awareness to other people about the epidemic going on in our country and the entire world. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Yeah, I'll add that I feel really proud to be part of a city that has this as a proclamation. And I know that there are folks in this room that really care about this and in our community that care about this. And I know also all of us would agree that we are also really lucky to have a lot of resources in this community. So if you are listening to this and you do need help, talk to, we have great local professional counselors, talk to local police, as you mentioned, our first line responders, EMS, fire, talk to your pastor, your priest. We have lots of resources and don't be afraid to ask help as it's explained it here. So anyways, I'm honored to see that the City of Ripon is supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no one. All those in favor of approving this proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That one is approved. We have a recognition of service and retirement for Chris Laveris, our utility manager. Adam?
Yeah, so Chris's last day with the city was Friday. His hire date, or he started with us in 2012. So we just want to thank Chris for his nearly, what it would be, 9 years of service to the city of Ripon, and wish him nothing but good times and relaxation and rest in retirement. He's on payroll through the Friday, but his last day was this past Friday, sorry. So, thank you, Chris.
All right. So moving into our first action item of the evening. First item is Senior Activity Center Design Services and Project Update. Have our architect here.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. I'm Carter with MSA Professional Services, as I think probably met most of you already previously. And I'm here tonight just to share an update on where we've been since the last time we had our council workshop session. Since then, we had a further project meetings to develop some of the amenities within the senior center, and then we also have a public informational meeting where we ask for input from the public and have engagement in that regard. And we're concluding or reaching the end of our schematic design phase, which is the preliminary phase that we've been under agreement to provide for the city. And so I'm going to share a brief overview of the design. A lot of it's going to look pretty familiar to what you've seen in the past, so I won't spend a lot of time, but please ask questions if you have any, and then we can talk a little bit about the next steps in the process. So associated with the, obviously the site development, the site's been settled to be the site in the building on the easterly portion of the site, as we discussed previously. Some of the potential additional funding from the county may potentially subsidize a further trail connection to the northwestern trail in regard to the trail to the park. I think we spoke of that trail before, that potentially the subsidy or the funds that may be received from the county will allow for that trail section to be paved and be a similar trail connection to the Scooten Trail connection to the north. That still is awaiting stewardship grant funding news, and if we receive that, those funds for the grant application to help subsidize that portion of the project. You can kind of see it on this map right here. Overall, the building is the site's been developed somewhat further with some site lighting components, some stormwater components around the building. This is still a schematic design, so it's a work in progress, but this is substantially the intent of the design, and with the added traffic control at the intersection to the southeast, and the widening of the street in front of the building. And you can start to see some of the massing and relationship to the street of the proposed facility, and trailhead components, which will be sort of the trail connection itself, are intended in the base project. You can see some of that on these images here with the trailhead kiosk, a bike fix-it station, and associated covered shelter area with public restrooms to the exterior of the building. So the building truly will serve multifaceted use with access for the trail users from the exterior, and then of course the senior center use. Overall, the building design is really based on one large central gathering space. We've kind of taken and enhanced that gathering space to try to develop it to its greatest potential, to basically create some sense of space within the larger room with some varied flooring materials, seating accommodations, and even an open warming kitchen to the space to actually add a sense of layers of different aspects to the room, with the layout that you're probably mostly all familiar with the common entry vestibule and office, and the exterior restrooms you can see off to the east or to the north. And just some sections. We're going to be sculpting some of the volumes of the rooms and the spaces. The building's a conventional wood frame building, kind of getting appropriate for the scale of the facility that's proposed and the price point targeted. And some exterior images are looking at an architectural standing seam roof, a combination of masonry and LP Smart Side material on the exterior of the building to give it a welcoming feel and effect. You can see kind of the combination. You can see the entrance to the senior center, and you can see the trailhead side entrance point and the duality of the building. Some amenities on the exterior. Relative to the timeline we're on track with what was considered earlier. We are on a schedule that needs to accommodate the CDBG close funds that have been awarded for this project. So accordingly, the city's on track to do some tree removal and installation of the project sign this year to meet those grant applications, and then with the idea of bidding the project out in January. So that kind of leads us to the process that's immediately in front of us. and that is to take it through the next 2 stages of project development with design development and construction documents through December, and then award in January, or bidding in January and award in February. And then construction targeted for completion in the fall of next year. And before you tonight, there's a potential action on the professional services agreement. And throughout the process from the inception with the grant application, we've had fees budgeted within the project framework, and those fees are here represented in the final fees for our final contract for the project. And I'm not going to go through the detailed scope unless there's questions, but overall, the idea is to take the project through design development and develop added levels of documentation and engineering into construction documents with all the specs and plans for bidding, and then ultimately into the bidding process itself. The project will be publicly let, electronically distributed plans and specs, and then the bid opening, and then award will follow successful bidder. And then services through construction. So being your partner and your representative during construction, to be on site to observe construction taking place, as well as be involved in the integration of the project from a construction standpoint. We have broke out the services separate for the optional trail services. And that includes the trails for those trail connections I mentioned earlier. It also includes some possible trail connections into the park itself. And some of those are going to be kind of sorted out based on budget, and the extent of the improvements will be calibrated accordingly, especially associated with the trail improvements within the park itself. And ultimately, our services, there's a breakdown there of compensation that lists the base services at $140,000, and then optional additional for all the trail extension and internal park trail work for $21,000. And so the additional services would be on hold until you give us the green light to proceed with those services. I spoke too quickly, so if anybody has any questions or comments or anything I can help with, I'd like to.
I got a question for you as far as, I was looking at the draft, and on the supplemental services, it shows you're not providing like as-built drawings, specs.
I can talk to that a little bit, certainly. The contractor has responsibility to keep record drawings, so they provide the record drawings at the end of the project.
Okay.
So we contractually obligate them to do that.
Okay.
There's a level of services we can do where we literally could go and draft up all those as-built drawings, but that can be expensive. And the main objective is to have that record of subtle or modifications during construction, so the record drawings from the contractor reach place.
Okay, so they will be there, it's just you're not
Exactly.
contractors.
And we'll dedicate somebody
Yes.
to do it as part of the project.
All right, thanks.
Yes.
And just to take a step back here too, so, you know, we've engaged MSA to do kind of the grant work and everything like that. And then when I kind of took over here, we started the design phase, the schematic design. I believe we approved the contract it would have been June-ish or so, to do schematic design, which included kind of the development of and formalization of this to get it to this point now where it's liftoff with, you know, a concept. Public input was received last week. And we've had 2 or 3 meetings, just kind of back and forth with key stakeholders to get to this point. So to keep it on pace for everything, and getting it bid out, as much as it looks like it's done, there's an incredible amount of work that goes into, you know, creating the plan from here on out. And that's, you know, the $140,000. And then I would just say the trail work would be contingent upon funding, and we can kind of lump that in. But I think it's a key component, and hopefully within the next couple weeks, we'll know if we have grant funding for that as well. So we didn't want to come back in June with, here's a like a whole entire package of, you know, so step by step. So this is the next step, basically. It's a big one, but I think we're comfortable in kind of the process to date, and comfortable with the overall concept, I hope, because it fits within the budget, and it seems to have been well received by most individuals that have taken the time to kind of view it. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, on the plans you had 33, was it 33 parking stalls? Something like that?
Yep.
And only 2 handicap, is that enough handicap considering it's a senior center / activity center?
Yeah, and that's a fair question or comment. We had that comment at the open house as well. You know, so right now, this is the ADA or accessibility requirements that we're meeting, and we can exceed that easily, and we can explore a little bit the strategies of doing that if you want to actually dedicated accessible stalls or dedicated senior citizen parking, and different, because there's difference of people with different levels of ability that might want parking but don't have, you know, the sign for the accessible parking. So in that regard, and there is obviously the mixed use with the trailhead there, you know, and how that works is some, so those aspects of the project are yet to be refined in the next stages.
And my other thought was designating a couple of spots for bicycle vehicle parking, designated spots for that. A lot of trails are doing that now where they're designating spots for people to park their cars, to use the trails and that, so that's another thought to use that, because this will be a connection point between the Mascoutin, the Northwestern, and, you know, Lori's Trail to Green Lake and that, so it's a good thing to think about.
Anyone else?
I'm going through the A and B, Exhibit A, Exhibit B. Maybe this is a question for Lud. What are we doing here with, what's with the 2 exhibits, A and B? What is, I mean, they're kind of, some things are repeating, some things are not.
Do you want me to explain a little bit about the contract format? Would that be helpful?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Currently, this is a standard AIA contract for architectural services, of which it, in the boilerplate say information in the front end describes those services. Then Exhibit A goes to the extent of giving a more careful description of the project itself. You know, so it's in context of what this project is that we're designing. It also goes into describing the scope of services, so what we're providing specifically for all different phases of the project. And then Exhibit B, that's in terms of conditions and contractual language. You know, that's just there to supplement the agreement. And then Exhibit C, of which I think in your packet you probably have 1 page of Exhibit C, but ultimately it's a whole schematic set of drawings for the project. Again, to qualify the nature of the project, so we're all in understanding of the scope of the work. So the intent is really Exhibit A, you know, you were right on relative to that's a good spot if you wanted to kind of study the scope of the services, where they're summarized more succinctly and in a clearer format to kind of talk about the services that we're providing from fire protection, provisions to the site, to the landscaping design and such. And so that's where it's listed there on those sheets. If you have any specific questions about what it's saying there, some clarity, I'd be appreciated.
So just to be clear, C, the schematic design ones wouldn't print because it was such a big file, so you only got the first page. So, but it's basically what we just viewed. It's just, yes, so C was, I tried to compress it and it didn't, it kept freezing. So I just quit.
So we have the formal agreements here, hard copies for the city's further review if needed, and also execution if approved.
Any further questions or comments? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved by Howard, seconded by John. Split. Two John things gonna be difficult. Any further questions or comments?
One question. I know you've looked at overload, no issues, you don't see any problems at all with this?
No, I've looked at a few of these in my day. Fairly standard in how they do it, and I think you did a wonderful job of breaking it up
Okay.
in the exhibit, so that does summarize what you're executing.
Okay. Thanks.
I think this was just presented on the screen as far as the calendar, but by approving this tonight, bidding is going to go out for the project, and remind me, then when do we come back and talk about this as a council?
Well, with the bid release, the exact dates, I don't have a specific schedule yet, but the bid release, first thing in January goes out, so typically, especially in this bidding climate, we'll probably want to allow 4 weeks for that, so it'll probably be the first meeting in February, probably when you'd be happening on it, for action of the awards and low bidder, the bids in order, so that's probably your next action point.
I had a question for Adam, just to comply with the grant that we've already received. Do we have to break ground this fall, or is tree removal
Tree
sufficient?
removal is sufficient, and I think, you know, with the steps we've taken, you know, I think there's a good faith effort to move this project forward with confidence. So we'll have to take some trees down, and then before the snow flies, or somewhere in that time, maybe December, have a ceremonial digging of the dirt. And then that's just to comply, but site removal and clearances, you know, things is good, so we're on pace for that. So the storm helped some of that.
Quite a bit.
Yes.
Are we required to take the low bid, or do we have options on that?
Ultimately, you're required to take a low qualified bid, you know, so if you're gonna get, the idea is this is gonna be bid to a general contractor, so you have a general prime, put subcontractors under them, who they'll identify as part of their bid. But ultimately, the low bidder will have to submit qualifications, you know, to us for review and in the city. And based on follow-up, sometimes we'll be familiar with those contractors, and you may as well. Other times we have concerns. You know, it can reach the point that somehow that low bidder appears to be not qualified, and then we start working with your council to think about not accepting that low bid and actually going to the second bid. You know, that's a process, a formal process. Obviously, you can imagine if you're turning away what seems to be, somebody could claim this is a low bid, we have to go through a process. Frankly, it doesn't happen that often that we get to that point. Usually, you have responsible bidders that are submitting that everybody, you know, you can feel comfortable with the award. But there is, so ultimately, you can't show, under state statute, you can't show favoritism to local contractors. You know, there's ways you can foster local contractor interest, you know, by making them aware of the project, you know, and so on and so forth. You know, so that's an important thing to do. But as far as based on public bidding, you know, the general contractors, when they choose their low bidder, they have a little discretion. You know, usually it's in their best interest to pick one of the lower bidders because it's going to, the grand total is going to be lower. But I mean, it's not unusual to have general contractors pick and choose the subs that they want based on their own preferences. You know, if they have certain subs they like that's a heating contractor, electrical contractor, and stuff. But overall, then we basically award to the low qualified bidder after we qualify them, and then we convey a recommendation based on qualifications to the city for action at the, you know, regular meeting.
And just while we're bidding it out through the electronic format, you have a list of all prime contractors, subcontractors. So it's a publicly accessible list. So if there are subcontractors that may want to work with the general prime contractor, they can see who's bidding and, you know, hopefully maybe if they're local contractors that may not general it, but want to do sub work on it, they can work with those prime or general contractors to get the work, so.
Thank you. Jillian?
I have a follow-up on that. You had said that although you can't show favoritism under state statute, you can help local contractors know sort of where the process is at, it sounded like. And so I assume many people, because the local contractors I know are active members in the community, so I assume they know where we're at. But who here does that fall on Adam, for
So
example?
yeah, there'll be a multitude of ways. It'll be online. Hopefully the public knows just based on the paper covering the story on top of then we are required to publish, I believe, the bid. So it'll be published in the Commonwealth. So, you know, when that hits the paper in January, February or so, that's kind of the local reach in it all. And then we certainly, through, you know, our network of, with staff, department heads, we can certainly engage local contractors. But yeah, if you're listening now, just in the next 6 months.
And word of mouth.
Yep, everybody here, yep, if you know of anybody.
Give them a heads up, and
Yep.
we'll have continuing progress sets as we go through the stages of development that would be accessible upon request if they're interested. You know, that can help Washington gear up to bid the project as well, because that's just communication and sharing about the project, you know, that's just helpful.
Any more questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? As approved. Thank you, Carter.
Thank you.
All right,
Both of them signed? All right.
moving on to a payment request for the Vermont Street Parkway Terrace project. This one is second payment on the project totaling $130,000, or $130,305.29.
Payment number 2, it's a little bit larger than the previous payment. I think the previous payment for payment 1 was 24 or some thousand. Mike must comment on progress.
Yeah, I can actually. You're going to see the payments get higher and higher as we move along. First of all, they've completed all the underground work from Oshkosh to Parkway Terrace, so storm water, all the utilities are under the ground. They're going to start road surfacing or grading that portion of it, I believe, this week. And the crew that is there now is going to take from Parkway Terrace straight north on Vermont and start doing that. A second crew will be coming in or is in, I wasn't there today, and start going down Parkway Terrace. So there'll be multiple crews in here to get this thing rolling. It does take a little time, and that was the plan from the beginning. So they're probably within a day or so of what they had planned and scheduled.
Is there a motion to approve this payment?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Paige, seconded by David. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this payment request, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Next item is a request for proposals for removal of storm damaged trees. Adam?
So after the storm, Mike and his staff went out and identified approximately 110 storm damaged trees that needed either removal, trimming, were down, need stump grinding. So that was kind of a baseline assessment done to basically try to take a little breather here and bid it out. We didn't want to just bring someone in because we didn't know the cost of what it was going to be. When we applied for the DNR Urban Forestry Grant, we applied for approximately $185,000. That was what we estimated. Thankfully, the low bid here and the low proposal came in well under that. We were kind of shocked by it, but quite frankly, but Trios out of, I believe it is Menasha, came in with a cost to remove, trim, grind, and restore those 110 locations at $56,750. And then coupled with that, they have a partner company called Buckland Tree Service that does grinding of the debris. So that was an additional $23,500. We had a couple other companies put in bids. We forwarded it out to probably 5, 6 other tree companies. So we at least had 2 look at it. So the overall cost of the low recommendation is $80,250, and that would be kind of, so Mike can explain it too a little bit. They will take down all of the trees that we have requested. We may add additional trees, just to be clear too, because we continue to get complaints about boulevard trees that split, that we didn't identify, because this was, in talking to Mike, we needed, in the wake of the storm, we needed a baseline. What are we minimum taking down? What's the minimum level of damage that we can see? So Mike assessed that. So then they take it down, or they trim all the debris, goes to the dump site. They then have a grinder there and tub grind it. I don't know what that is.
It is a tub grinder, yes.
Yep. And we will.
100 horse or 1,000
Yep.
horse.
So that's the second part of this. They will take everything that's down there currently. So Mike can explain the size of it and what kind of happens from there, but.
Yeah, you know, they're gonna bring everything in that they take down, and they will be grinding all of that. With that, that's included in that price. Okay? They're gonna clean up that back area also of where all them old stumps are. That's included in that price. Okay? We are going to have to add more trees that need some type of service to it. And I figure there is somewhere, I got a 20, 30 thing list of other trees that have come to my attention. After you drive around, they all look the same after a while. And where do you draw the line? But we did keep going around, or I did, and keep finding these. I just found some today that somebody called in. So if anybody, any residents out there have any concerns or not marked, please let us know. We can get those taken care of. So I've separated those out, and I'll ask the contractor to give us what they call a change order cost for those. So we'll go down that road also and try to get those compiled in there. I was real happy with the price that came in. It's phenomenal. It's a turnkey operation. They got, 15 guys for tree cutting and things like that. So large operation, they're able to come in, get out for that.
And then the grinding, the other part of it is, yeah, the grinding, which is really actually awesome, is we will be able to take what we need in terms of chips to use for parks.
So I talked to Adam a little bit about this after I was thinking over the weekend here a little bit and doing budgeting. Off and on here a little bit is we budget about $8,000 for chips a year, is to hold back some of these chips and to incorporate these into the parks and get a good base and nice level for the parks need. And really, what's it going to cost us? It's going to cost us putting them down. So I threw this out there, try to have a community event where the chips are in place and we get volunteers to spread those out to help the community out. I know there's some Adopt a Park, Fortified Bank, Adopt a Park. I'm sure it's something they would do, but there's other parks in the area too. Just to get these out there, otherwise we'll do it ourselves. So
And then everything else
utilize.
Yeah. And everything we don't need, they will take, which is
no cost.
and no cost, because what they said was the current pile ground down will be about 40% of the current pile. So you can imagine, you know, if this whole room was full, we'd still have about half of it full of chips. That's more chips than we need. So,
So speaking of more chips and what we need, is it helpful to have community members, or if there's local businesses that want chips, would it be helpful to this contract, or if that we were gonna allow them to take it? I understand, I love the idea that you brought up about using them at local parks. I think that would probably take priority versus someone privately using it,
While
but,
they're here, they can take them, absolutely, take what they want. That would be free to them to take, yes,
And we-
as long as they load it and haul it away, yes.
we talked about that too, having a larger pile than maybe we need and offering it to residents for free or whatever, you know, we just, you know, at some point it becomes excessive, so we gotta gauge that.
but so if people are interested, they should follow the Facebook page, City of Ripon, to find out when that
Yeah,
is.
this will all, you know, happen in the next few months, so, you know, we'll have a pile still down there come spring, I would assume. How big, we'll see, but, you know,
And you had mentioned if residents see trees that aren't marked, I assume that obviously means on city property, but what does a marking look like? How would they know?
So there's two types of marking on them. One is an X, remove. So that'll be a remove, grind, and then restoration. The other is just a small green dot that they're going to come in and trim that tree. There's either hangers in there or some type of damage that really needs to be taken care of now so that it doesn't, safety-wise, and it doesn't get infected with bugs or cause issues down the road. And those are really the two at this point. I was thinking about a third color today, but I don't have that figured out yet with the other trees that we're adding on, potentially adding on. Okay?
So if a resident has a concern about a tree in a city park or on the space between the sidewalk and the street, they should first look if there's a mark on it,
Yes.
and if there's not a mark, then to call.
And if they're unsure, just call and we'll figure out whose tree it is.
Sounds great.
and then to be clear here, so of the approximate $80,000 here, you know, 50,000 of this will, if we get a DNR grant, will be covered right off the bat. The remaining balance of that is a 70-30 split between the city and the Wisconsin Disaster Fund. So, you know, this number allows us to maybe do some more of those other trees at a 30%, you know, share. So we'll apply for grant funding on all of this. And, you know, we had enough time to bid it out and get a good proposal, so.
Is the restoration going to consist of grinding down below the surface, putting in topsoil, and then seeding or sodding? Really?
It'll be seeding, yes, it'll
Okay.
The green pellets?
It will be pellets. So when I talked to him, he asked if he could use pellets instead of straw. I says, absolutely. The straw blows away and there's nothing left.
Right.
Something that we'll be changing in our own department. But yeah, it'll be pellets, the green pellets like you see when they do curbing. They'll come in and they'll put the pellets down. So I will talk to him about, a lot of them come up like this, make sure we get those ground down as far as we can.
But a follow up with that, when I hear restore, I almost think of if a tree came down, restoring it means a tree will be planted. But I'm not hearing that a
No,
tree
there's
will be
no,
planted.
there's no planting. This is restoration of the boulevard to, you know, to plant seeds so it can then be maintained by the property, mowed, all of that. So, so we ask that property owners if they can water it, or if the seed doesn't take, if they can, you know, take it upon themselves to maintain it. We would appreciate that, but ultimately, you know, that is part of this, is to try to get it. Doesn't always take, but yeah. And then eventually, yes, we would love to plant more trees, but this is, no funding will plant trees in this situation.
And there's no DNR extra money that we could apply for planting.
We are working toward that for next year.
Cool.
Is there a motion to approve?
Wait, I have one more question.
Oh, yep.
Sorry. I don't see a listing of here that they have insurance. Is that something that we can assume that they have insurance?
I received all that information today, and they do have insurance for both
Perfect.
companies, and that's part of our contractor program.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
Second.
Been moved by David, seconded by Paige. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the bid for tree removal and restoration, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. All right, moving on to an employee leasing agreement for the finance manager position. Adam?
Yeah, so the previous finance manager's last day was on the 20th, I believe, so, or sooner than that. So in response to that resignation, we need to find somebody to come in because that's a very specific role. And we can piece things together for a short time, but it's going to take months to find a permanent solution and permanent person to take over the finance manager position, which we will talk about next. Basically, I reached out to a couple, providers or finance or auditing firms or or CPA firms to get an idea of what it would cost to place somebody here in the interim. So GovTemps USA, which is a part of GovHR, which is a placing company and temps company in the state, and CLA, our current auditor, and then Baker Tilly, which is another auditing firm. Overall, you can see a breakdown of cost. The recommendation is to work with GovTemps USA at a rate of $105 an hour for Danielle. I attached her resume there as well. So Danielle would basically 16 hours a week, so about $6,720, give or take per month. That would be the cost. The general idea would be her come in and take on the functions of that role, part in-house and then part remotely. Danielle has a vast amount of experience, including she was just the finance director or interim finance director for the city of Sheboygan, because they had a similar situation where somebody left the organization and it took them a long time to find somebody. I hope it doesn't take as long here to find somebody. That was 9 months. So she's able to come in and use her experience and kind of just plug and play, I guess. The other firms that we looked at, just from a cost or auditing perspective, were just not as attractive, including CLA. They do our financial audit, but audit independence is something that I think is very important. So bringing them in to kind of take on this role would be not necessarily a conflict, but kind of one. So there's an agreement here for an employee leasing agreement for Danielle, and the terms of it are the terms of it. And like I said, we're asking that you approve it, and then starting tomorrow she will get rolling. And like I said, as long as we need her, hopefully it's only like up to 3 months, but like I said, if we can, Ann and the rest of the team have in the office are doing a great job of kind of pulling the pieces together. But if we let things go too far, we're gonna have problems. It's just pretty natural based on the structure we have. So we're asking that we get some help in the interim, and GovTemps with their contract is the recommendation. Yes.
Okay, so you're looking on average 16 hours a week. I mean, where's she coming from? Because she can get paid 4 hours round trip per day.
So right up front, with our previous finance manager, if there's something we've proved, it's that this can be done remotely. Okay, because it's been done remotely for a year.
Okay,
She will be doing the majority of this remotely.
okay,
She has no desire to commute after commuting for 9 months back and forth to Sheboygan. If she needs to commute, like, our guess is that once, maybe twice a week, or sorry, twice a month, she commutes up to meet with us, sit down, you know, but the rest of it will be done mostly remotely, which is honestly, you know, between everyone here, we can handle that, so.
Okay.
No cash is going to Illinois.
Stupid toll roads.
Any further questions or motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve GovTemps USA.
Second.
Moved by Howard, seconded by John Split. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the GovTemps USA contract, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, next item is the finance manager position proposal. Adam, you want to take that as well?
Yeah, so anytime we have a transition, it's important to analyze what we can do and reevaluate the organization. In the past, the finance manager had more of an assistant city administrator title to it as well. So generally speaking, when just looking at this, trying to elevate the role, elevate the salary, quite frankly, to attract more people to apply, it was just sort of recommended that we kind of go back to that model and try to find somebody that obviously does most of the finances, but then assists in some of the other stuff that has been identified in the operation that needs to be fixed or addressed, or grants or anything. So that is the goal here, is to advertise this as a finance manager / assistant city administrator. Just so you are aware, the current salary range for the finance manager is around, you know, it was $69,000 to $71,000, so this is a little bit higher than that. But I'm comfortable in saying we can move that across other funds and not have it really impact anything too harshly. And quite frankly, in the climate we are in, to attract quality candidates, I don't know if $75,000 to $85,000 starting salary range is going to get us there, even to be quite honest with you all. But it's where I think is reasonable to start, to try to get somebody here that has the skill set that we're really looking for and that we need. So this is the job posting that I'm hoping you authorize me to kind of post. We would budget for this for 2022. That's, you know, because the chances of us actually having somebody by, you know, November, by the time the budget's done or anything, it's very unlikely at this point, just in the current market. The last time we posted a job for this range, we had, as a department head, Jeremy's here, thanks for taking the job, by the way, and applying, but we didn't have, we had, I would guess, qualified applicants 7 or 8. For this role, we hope to have at least that, and we need at least that. So that's why the salary range is elevated from the previous position, and adding the assistant city administrator, I think, just elevates the role, and that's kind of the thought process behind it all. And we just are trying to, yeah, we need to get it out.
And just as a history, his predecessor, Lori Rich, when she started, was in finance manager / assistant city administrator. When she moved up, that position was just reduced to the finance manager. So it hasn't been that long since we've had this title.
And quite frankly, too, Linda Kuchenreiter, the city administrator for Amro, started as the finance manager, assistant city administrator here. So this was the City of Ripon used to produce administrators. So I think that's something that is good to create introductory level positions. Not that you only want them here for a couple years, but I think it speaks a lot to create these types of positions for the profession and for other communities.
I'm thinking back to when we hired you, Adam. We had put together a little sort of informational packet about Ripon because we know that there could be people that move to the area who perhaps aren't as familiar with Ripon. Is this something that, I mean, it seems to me that we already have those documents that we could also include in when we give out the information. So my question is, one, yeah, do we have anything that we might want to include to entice people to look at Ripon and how great of a city we have? And then two, can you explain a little bit more about how you plan to advertise this out and maybe making sure that perhaps underrepresented populations might also see this
Yep.
job?
So we will put it out locally, just kind of like we do, publish it in the paper, do it online on our city website, post it on Facebook. We will then post it on multiple, we can go pretty far out if we want to, but it'll be on a bare minimum, the Wisconsin City County Management Association, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. We will, so they have a good reach. We can get out into the government GFOA, which is kind of Government Finance Administrators Organization or something like that. We'll go to the GFOA because it's a finance, so we'll get it out to their network, their estate, and then national, entities of those. So there's like a state GFOA and then the national one. We'll go up to the national one. Same with WCMA. We can go to the ICMA, which is international. So we can post it on all these places. On top of then, I've had conversations with obviously GovHR, with our previous, who placed me, PAA, because of this transition and talking to them. So we will forward it to them as well, and they will kind of use it not as a, charge us to get it out there, but there is a network of people out there that know people that are looking or that would take this job. So we'll expand this out as far as we can within reason, within a budget, and then in terms of a broader packet of information, that's something I can work on, and I'm not going to just rip what PA did, but I'm sure Chris and everybody over there would help me out. So
Thanks.
What's the timeline you're looking at putting this out to?
immediately,
Okay,
and then yep.
a end time, hopefully.
The end time, I think I have it on there. I don't remember if I do, to be honest. Looks like September 24th, and open until filled. So, I like I said, if we have a decent amount of applicants and we go through the interview process, by November, early December, we'd have somebody starting. I think 4 weeks is minimum that we advertise. I think with the utility manager, we at least did 3 weeks. So,
Thank you.
but it'll be open till filled. That's kind of the idea.
Is the old finance manager full-time?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, what work doesn't get done between the old position and the new one only being 16 hours?
So the what you're talking about is the temp, the gov temp one. That is just merely, how do I explain this? There are other things that the finance manager did, including grant management, things of that nature, that I've taken on.
That won't get done.
That will get done by other staff here. The contract that was approved with GovHR and what Danielle's doing will be, at the bare minimum, the journal entries and the hardcore CPA or financial work. So at 16 hours per week, they need to keep her under 40 because she's an employee of GovHR. She will not be applying for this role. When we place the next person and they get hired, they'll be a full-time person again, and they'll have they'll have, you know, all the responsibilities plus more. I mean, I think what happens is you kind of skinny it down to survive and not cost us a lot of money, because if we're paying $105 an hour at 40 hours per week, or even 20 hours, it gets pretty costly quick. So yeah, yeah. It's a full-time job, it is. So, but.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by John Split, second by Paige. Any further discussion on the proposed finance manager, assistant city administrator position and job posting?
Yeah, I feel like we should almost outline exactly what the motion is. We're approving the motion for the finance manager and assistant city administrator, right, as presented? Is that what the motion is?
Yes.
In one position.
In one position. And that also means we're, the salary range, everything, we're approving all of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Basically approving the proposal that Adam put in the back.
Well, when we're all said and done, it'll be like, I'll bring the person here, kind of like Jeremy, and hopefully it's that simple.
And it is under current ordinance, subject to the approval by the council.
Yeah.
That position is specifically called out by our ordinance, and so you will get the final say on the recommendation.
Before the hiring is,
Correct.
so the candidate will be brought before the council.
Correct.
Okay. Now, just for clarification, do we go through a similar process of interviews and ultimately Adam makes the pick and then presents, or the council?
No, it is, the city administrator shall appoint the budget and finance director. So it is somebody.
And the council.
And whatever format he chooses to bring this individual on board as his, you know, he may use the same format as we,
Yeah, we'll do a similar,
using the president of the council, a member of the council, or the mayor, or other staff members. But it is appointed by the city administrator, subject to approval by the city council.
Very good.
so I'll have at least one person to bring to you, finalist, after the process. So.
Exactly.
But as a follow-up, it sounds as though we're not going to be convening as a council like we did for our city
No.
administrator.
Nope.
And looking at resumes.
It's not
Yep.
He'll make his appointment
Yep.
and
You'll either go thumbs up or thumbs down.
Got it.
And I assume if you go thumbs down, he begins the process again.
Correct.
And the bottom line, it comes down to someone that Adam feels comfortable working with and the staff feels comfortable working with. And, you know, that's, our say really shouldn't mean that much because we're not working with them on a day-to-day basis.
Safe to say you put a lot of weight on it,
Yes.
because you hired the city administrator and you trust the
Exactly.
city. Hopefully.
It's the trust we put in.
But I'm gonna just make a point here to say, I think we're setting a standard. If this is the first time we are hiring an assistant city administrator, how we treat them from the beginning does say a lot. And so making them go through more of a formalized approach, meeting the council. I mean, if they're gonna be also representing the city in this role as assistant, I mean,
This isn't the first time that an assistant has been hired in the past. We've hired.
I understand that, but, you know, again, if it's just, here's the one person, you know, again, my point would be if Adam thought that it would be appropriate to have more of a formalized approach where you bring people in, if you thought that was good, that in some regards, I think is setting a good tone for what we expect of them to be representative of the city and to be visible and, again, that's your choice, I understand. Is that how you-
I understand it. It's a return to an old format, and I don't know what was done in the past to place or anything. We'll go through our process. If at any point it becomes overwhelming or I think it's out of control or whatever, we can't come to a conclusion, I can bring it to you all and we can maybe do something. But this is a very different employee than me in terms of interaction with the public, in terms of contracts, in terms of all of that. This is a very This is just a different, it's essentially a hybrid department head. It's not even really a department head. So,
I think the language of the current ordinance does encompass what has happened historically.
Okay.
Is that they gained the title of Assistant City Administrator, but that was at the will of the administrator. And that's kind of where we have been. So nothing has changed in the ordinance since 1996. So I think that's where we're headed, is the same place we've been, other than this city administrator is telling you he would like to include back the city administrator assistant title. Otherwise, it's the same thing as in the code.
if I just placed finance manager or finance or whatever,
Right.
I wouldn't have to come to the council or anything. It would
Right.
just be, and that's, I think, the reason, what happened the last time, 2 years ago.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the finance manager, assistant city administrator position and job posting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to a resolution writing off uncollectible personal property tax accounts for the year of 2020. You all have a chart of what those are and the reasons for why they're not collectible.
And chargebacks will be pursued. Ann wanted me to say that.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you.
I'll second. Oh,
I'll second. Been motioned by David, seconded by John Gatsky. Any questions or discussion?
I do. I wanted to say that I personally talked with the co-owner of Collaborative Wellness. I'll make a note here. Collaborative should be updated in the spelling in what we received. Who talked with the city as soon as the situation was found out. Here it says that there was a duplicate tax bill and that the individual has been in contact with the city. They're entirely up to date with their payments. I do actually question if it's a duplicate. It almost seems like it's, there wasn't a reason that should have been charged. I don't know. It's a little bit strange to me that we were voting on writing it off when it was a duplicate. It seemed everything was paid.
Ann would like to clarify.
One of the co-owners filed under Suspanti, and the other one filed under Collaborative Wellness. They didn't talk to each other, and then the tax bills came out, and they realized what happened.
So we're just clearing it off.
So I guess the reason I bring it up is because it almost feels like we're writing this off, like we're forgetting about it, but I want to make a point to say that this upstanding business in the community has paid everything that they should.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to, just for the record.
Yeah, it's good clarification.
Because of a clerical error, they were charged twice.
Yeah.
And so they did pay one. and
At their
writing off
request,
the other.
at their request.
Yeah.
That's the key. We didn't just make it up. They gave us the name of Sua Sponte and Collaborative Wellness.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Moving on to a resolution authorizing limited bow hunting within the city limits. This seems to get done every year just to reduce the deer population inside the city limits. And it is that time of year again.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved by Paige, seconded by John Split. Any questions or discussion on this resolution?
This is to turn around and keep the same parameters that we've had in the past with the group, same locations, no
Correct.
additions. Okay, just so people out there can understand.
I have a question on that because here what we receive, it says that there is recommendations for next hunt. And the second point is obtain more hunting locations. So by you saying that it's the same locations, are we saying that we are approving more locations or
No.
that they would like to request more locations? What are we stating there?
Goes back to the
Bill.
contract, and Chief can speak to it.
As far as the more locations issue, that's up to that team to be in contact with property owners to gain access for that permission. Basically, what you're approving is the concept of allowing a bow hunt within the city to this group. They then reach out to the private landowners within the city to get permission to establish that. We are not involved in that.
Great, thanks.
And Bill, a question for you. They do follow all the DNR safety requirements for distance from houses and roads and,
Yes.
okay.
Yep, and you'll see in there that there were some issues in regards to the baiting ban, which affected their hunt, so they are following DNR guidelines in reference to that as well.
Thank you.
They are a good, solid group that has been doing this service for the city for quite a few years.
Any other questions or comments?
And they do donate the venison, I believe, to different organizations, so.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the resolution authorizing limited bow hunting within city limits, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, next item is an ordinance for the tax incremental district relating to sewer charges. And then right after that is one relating to water charges. Want to make a description of
I
both
will
of these?
describe both of them all in once. Basically, the Vermont Street Parkway Terrace project is within a half-mile boundary of tax incremental district number 9. Basically, what these ordinances will do is create tax incremental charges for both water and sewer to assist with the debt payments of the Clean Water Fund and the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program for that project. So we're going to get that debt. There'll be, annual payments that have to be made. TID number 9, that's an allowable project cost outside of its boundary. It has approximately $120,000+ of unallocated increment that we are collecting that could go help pay those bills and that debt, therefore limiting the amount of rate increase that we may need to pay for that project. So it is recommendation that we provide that option through these ordinance amendments for both to really, at the end of the day, use unallocated TIF increment to subsidize a project that would otherwise need a rate increase.
Any questions on the pair of ordinances?
I'll make a motion, we approve both ordinances.
Oh, we should take them
Do
one
them
at a time.
separately.
Do we have to do them separate?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So if there's no
All right.
questions on, in
I'll do
general, if you want to make a motion on the first
I'll
one,
make
the
a
sewer,
motion on the sewer.
the tax incremental district sewer charges.
Second.
Been moved by David, seconded by Howard. Any discussion on that one? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. David?
Make a motion to approve the water charges on the TIF district.
I'll second.
Been moved by David, seconded by Paige. Any discussion on the water ordinance? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That one is approved as well. Moving on to our discussion items. First item is just a 2022 budget timeline update. Adam?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, obviously, with some of the transitions happening, I would say that we are a little behind, but I wanted on the 2022 budget, but I just wanted to comment on some things and get some information to you as we work on it. So you can see the budget timeline, it's pretty simple. We will continue to work on things through September here. Some big things that are coming up are the union contract negotiations, which will occur in mid-September. We will bring also the capital improvement plan to you all, hopefully in September at one of those, and give you budget updates in September, either the 14th or the 27th. So staff continue to work on worksheets and the capital improvement plan. And then the next one is we will present some information along the way, and then obviously in October Common Council special budget meeting, we'll set a date there, and then we need to do summary budget publication. And then November 9th, public hearing and adoption of the 2022 city budget, either the 9th or the second meeting in November. It just has to be done in November or December, so, but we have posting things we have to do and requirements, so we'll set those dates and try to get it all timed out correctly. So we'll make sure any extra meetings we'll schedule with you all before, so we can make sure everybody's here. We are still waiting for a lot of state figures, and like I said, due to some of the transition, we are, I would say, a little behind, but I think the transition allows us to reevaluate the budget and maybe simplify it a little. Quite honestly, the process in the past is that's been created and used is very difficult, and only one person knew how to do it. And that person left and then passed it on to one person, and that is not a sustainable way of doing budgeting. Having one person with the knowledge of that. So simplifying it, I think, is important as well, because I think some of the formatting and information in the budget does not kind of spell out everything in a comprehensive way. It's a lot of mini budgets that look into a big budget. So working with Danielle and department heads to bring forward, which will likely be a different looking budget, will happen this year, just because of the circumstances that have been brought about. In terms of some of the numbers and concerns going into the budget, you can see on the second page just some changes and things of that nature. So not that it matters a whole heck of a lot, but there's some numbers in terms of equalized value that dropped. That really mostly impacts, our calculation for mill rates as well as our borrowing capacity. So we received a 3% reduction in equalized value. That is, I fought with the DOR about that, as well as the next point, the TID equalized values being dropped significantly. Ellers will be here next month to talk a little bit about that and the impact that may have. So we lost approximately $4 million of equalized value in our TIF districts. That is simply numbers that the state puts together, and they, in my guesstimation here, in past years where we were seeing significant increases in, say, residential property values of 7% or 5%, or I think a total of 16% in the 3-year period, this is a correction back to where the numbers are. Then again, that 3% reduction in some of these numbers are based on a reevaluation that was done by our assessor, as well as the Department of Revenue. Long story short, the housing market in Ripon, the sales, some of them, it had a negative adjustment the past year, so it was a -4. So basically, here's your assessed value. The median sale was 4% under the assessed value, so the sale price is the equalized value, so they corrected it down. But there are houses that are selling for 20%, 30%, 40% over assessed value right now. So this is a kind of hopefully a 1-year temporary readjustment. It's all numbers. I fought them on it. They really don't want to listen, and they point the finger back and forth from the DOR to the assessor. But the biggest concern there is the impact of the assessed value on the TIF districts. To lose potentially $4 million of increment value could be very significant. And like I said, Ellers will be here, Phil Costin, to talk a little bit about that. It's kind of a foreign territory for us, because most of the time the TIF districts are always gaining value, and by a number switch and equalizing the equalized value to the assessed value, it dropped the increment by $4 million. So if that has a negative, Phil will be here to talk about that. Net new construction, as most of you are hopefully aware, we are allowed to raise our tax levy by net new construction. That was 0.49%, which grants us approximately $15,000 to $16,000 based on my preliminary calculations of extra tax levy to budget for. So that is not a whole heck of a lot of money, and it goes back to the whole point of we need to grow. Reduction in the tax levy, we will also have a $200,000 reduction in our tax levy because of the dispatch changes, so that will be forwarded on to Fond du Lac County. And in that case, because of that, expenditure restraint is not going to necessarily be as big of a problem, because right off the bat, we are not spending $200,000, and we are not making that up in revenue at this point. So, so basically, expenditure restraint is what a lot of times we are budgeting for. Just my feelings on budgeting in general is we are budgeting for expenditure restraint, and that may mean cutting certain priorities to get funded better by the state of Wisconsin. So expenditure restraint is important, but I do not see us bumping up against that this year just based on the reduction in the tax levy that's planned. Okay, so that's good. And then some of the things we're looking at doing and some of the other impacts, we will be looking at, much like kind of this ordinance did here. Okay, we are taking TIF money and using it for a purpose greater than, because there's unallocated increment, so we're using it for an allowable project expenditure. There are other things we can use TIF districts for, and so we are looking at how we can better utilize those across our operations to relieve pressure on the general fund or prioritize things. All of those are in project plan amendments, things like that. So we haven't traditionally done that, but it's something, just looking at past practice, we need to start looking at doing and utilizing TIF districts in a just a better way moving forward to help support the operations. Health insurance increase, we're looking at a pretty significant increase of 10 to 14% estimated. That is well over $100,000. Then we look at wages, planned increase of 1 to 3%, but we're also waiting for negotiations with the police union. So there will be savings from the dispatch change, but obviously that will be partially offset by the reduction of $200,000 in our tax levy. And then shared revenue, those are the funding numbers that we're still waiting for. Really, from a standpoint of the state of Wisconsin, in their budget, they did not increase shared revenue, but they did increase some transportation aid, so we do hope that there's a bump there for transportation aid. We also do have the rescue plan dollars sitting in the account that could help offset certain costs or expenditures in the budget, but I am hopeful that we can kind of make it all fit within the means of everything without touching that. So that's kind of a summary of some of the numbers. I wouldn't say that it's going to be an easy budget process to get through everything, just because of some of the transitions and in it being my first one, but department heads are well aware of how a lot of this works, as well as if there's any input you want to provide, please let me know, and we'll continue to work on the numbers and provide updates as they become available.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions for Adam at this point on the budget?
I have a question about the timeline. Having last year been my first time going through this, I remember last year we had our public hearing on the same night that we adopted our current budget. And I remember that there was someone that came in from the community and made a suggestion, but then that night we had to vote on the budget. And so it seems so strange to me that whether or not that suggestion would be something that people wanted to consider, if we wanted to consider it, what would that mean? It would mean that we'd have to sit around here. I mean, the department heads have already sort of presented their budget. It just seems sort of unrealistic that something could be discussed and changed, in a matter of, in that moment. Things need to be set. So I guess, help me understand, it doesn't make sense to have a public hearing the same night that we're going to adopt the budget.
So we are required to do and we are able to, we have to post the summary budget before. The budget can be changed at any time during that conversation between, it is not final until you all vote, okay? So if there is indeed, on the same time too, if you have one person come and talk about a budget and say something, does that warrant the whole entire budget being changed for that purpose? That's up to you all to decide. But, it is totally up to you up until that very point to approve the budget, deny the budget, change the budget. There's always time to not do it and have another meeting to approve it. It has to be passed by December 31st. You can also do a budget amendment, which requires a 2/3 vote, which I think similarly the budget may require a 2/3 vote, I don't know. But it is not uncommon at all to have the public hearing and then pass the budget right after. That is a common practice in the state of Wisconsin.
Budget only requires a majority vote.
Majority, okay.
Amendment, 2/3, as Adam pointed out. So the point he's making is, yes, that isn't one opportunity for the public to speak. And the Common Council can call timeout and say, we'd like to fit this, give it back to the city administrator brings it back another night. Obviously, I think Adam is very good about getting information out to the public. And so as we start this process, the public should be aware of the type of debates that are going to be going on at the council level. And earlier is better. And so if they've got an idea or a suggestion as to how the budget can be made better, do it early. And then it can be incorporated. It gives obviously staff more time to figure out where the money's coming from.
That's a really good point. And to that point, if someone has something that they wanted to voice, they don't have to wait to the public hearing, correct?
Absolutely not.
And the process would be they would contact their representative, they could
Yep.
contact Adam.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, yeah, and it's good to make that known and for the press to move that forward, because that is very important that the public knows. It's their budget. You're just doing it for them.
Thanks.
Any other questions on the budget process? All right. So moving on then, project updates and staff reports. Adam?
So we found these. There are 10 of them. They were bought for the council with CARES Act money. And I just wanted to see if there's any interest in anybody moving away from paper packets to more electronic use. It's a tablet, a Samsung Galaxy Tab A, that we could work through a process. So instead of getting paper delivered, we could send an email with the entire packet and then have a tablet here, or you can bring your own. It's just an option. They're here. They were bought, we found them, and I just wanted to offer them because the intention of it was for the council. If you do not want them, we can find places to use them within our organization. But I don't think anybody knew that these were, they were found. And I don't think anybody said that they were buying them for the council, but they're just tablets. They're not for Candy Crush or surfing the web during meetings. We would have them here to use as more or less your hard copy of the agenda and minutes and packets. So if you're interested, just let me know and we can try to work on something. That's all. Yes.
I think it might be helpful sometime, it doesn't have to be here, but to remind all of us in the council, you just joke that it's not meant for surfing the internet during a meeting. But in all reality, sometimes things come up where maybe it would be helpful to search on the internet for something, but I think that there are some reasons why we don't, right? There are reasons why we don't bring our cell phones, for example, as individuals. And so, there's reasons why we don't want to get messages during a meeting from folks, right? I mean, if we were to move to this and people theoretically could be having an app open where people can message, I think we should just remind ourselves of the reasons why we shouldn't be doing that, correct?
These would generally be just preloaded with the information, you are correct. There have been cases out there where there have been communities that have had council members that live stream via their Facebook page the meeting. and then take comments from people while the meeting's going on. Is that the kind of conduct? That's up to you all. But I would, yes, you know, that can happen because it has. And so this would be merely a, you know, replacing the paper. We wouldn't be putting anything else on them. We would just be having them sitting here, or we would distribute them, or you come pick them up or whatever. So, and we can email it too. We can email the packet, which then you can look at it on your laptop or your desktop, whatever. It just stops us from, you know, printing
Yeah.
80 pages for everybody. It's just an option, so we're offering it. If you're interested in it, let me know.
Right.
But yes,
I mean, that can open some other almost ethical issues too, right? I think.
I'm just,
Clearly.
Yeah.
yes.
You're here to meet, and the meeting is open to the public. The public wants to observe your debate. That's the whole point of an open meetings requirement. And the idea that you're here punching a note to somebody else on the council rather than speaking your words is a danger for certain and can run afoul of open meeting laws.
So just let me know if anybody has any interest in doing electronic packets versus paper. And if you don't, find a use. That's all I had.
All right, updates from the police department, water department. Nope.
Jeremy?
Public works? Nope. All right.
I have one thing.
Oh,
The Diamond 6 project has been completed on redoing that. I'd like to request people to stay off it for a couple of weeks as we do have fresh sod put down that we do have to water to maintain that, so if they can give us a few weeks before they start going out on that, that would be appreciated.
all right.
I have a question for Mike. At any time, will Oshkosh Street by Vermont and Parkway Terrace have to be blocked off, or is it
No.
nothing at all there?
They're all hooked up.
Okay.
All right. I have two appointments for John Gatsky here. First one is going to be to the library board. He will be replacing me on that board, as I'm kind of holding the council member position, which is, I don't think it's mandated by code, but is kind of tradition. So I'd like to appoint him to the library board first.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved by David. I heard Jolene second first. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing John to the library board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the other one would be to the Ripon Area Fire District, the governing board. That would be replacing Ben's position there, which is a council representative position, I believe in the statutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved by Page, seconded by Howard. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing John to the Fire District Board?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, thank you for that. All right, and just my standard comments. Please, if you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. The Delta variant is definitely in our neck of the woods, and the vaccine is still holding up quite well against it, preventing serious illness and definitely doing a great job preventing death. We've all known people who have been affected and or lost their lives from COVID. Please get the vaccine if you have not gotten it already. And when the boosters become available to your group, please consider getting the booster shot as well. Are there any comments or future agenda items from council members?
I'd just like to say that it is, I think it's worth acknowledging when someone from the community steps up to serve. And so Jonathan, I think you know, I don't mean to speak for all of us, but I can imagine all of us would say, welcome to the council. And again, I think it's worth acknowledging that someone would step up in this way. And so thank you as a personal colleague. I also just want to, just because it's on my heart, wasn't sure I was going to say anything, but you know, this weekend the community lost a really bright light in this community. Nicole Moniz has passed away, has been very involved in this community. I know many people here know her, and I just think that it's worth thinking about the people around us and the loved ones, and you just, you know, don't want to take life for granted. So,
Well stated.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved by Paige, seconded by Dave. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:36. Thank you.